Hi friends, this is Katie here and welcome to another book journal video. Today we're setting up my spread for the month of May. I'm not really sure what happened to April, it was such a quick month, but I'm glad to be bringing you May's journal spread today and looking forward to a new month of reading. I'm actually doing two sort of spreads today. The first one is my general spread for like tracking the books that I buy or on haul. And the second one is for the Asian Readathon. So stay tuned if you're interested in that. I will leave timestamps down below. Now the clip actually jumps here and I'm not sure what exactly happens, but I seem to have lost a little clip where I do the calendar doodles, so that just kind of appears as if by magic. But then I add a little section for video planning, and I just kind of use this as like kind of notes for like what I'm going to upload to my channel. It's nothing kind of comprehensive, it's just a kind of list for myself of ideas and stuff like that, but it's been really helpful and I do like using it. So I also decided this month to do a bit more of the line drawing by hand, so you'll see a bit more of that in this video today. But I then add a little notes section here and I've left quite a lot of blank space, and the spread in general looks quite different than things that I have done previously, but you'll kind of see why in a wee minute, and what my kind of plans are for it. But yeah, this is just for kind of notes, anything that kind of comes to mind, or things like events or things to take note of, I guess. Quite straightforward. And then there's the acquired and unhauled sections there. I'm definitely letting go of perfectionism here in this slide. I made a few mistakes, but it's just no big deal. And then I added my little bee that I had the other month because I just really enjoyed that little bee and thought it would be sweet to have it again on the page. And from here I just sort of take an eraser and rub out some of the lines, and you can see now the difference that's made and the way it looks without the pencil drawing outline underneath. There are quite a lot of impressions on this page, and that's because I'd done the second page first before doing this page, and you'll see that in a little minute come to life. But to fill in these spaces in the journal I decided to use some paper, and this is like basically paper that I had from a Paper Gang subscription box, which is like a subscription box for stationery in the UK, and it's like leftover from that subscription. It's quite pretty. I don't often stick paper into my journal. Someone who I see does this really well is Artrice over at the Black Daria, and I'll leave a link to Artrice's channel down below. It's definitely worth checking out if you like these kind of journal videos, and if you like seeing people put in paper and different kinds of imagery into the journal. Artrice does that very well. But here you can just see this beginner using sellotape of all things to try and get a little bit of something different into the journal. I don't have glue and I didn't want to go out and buy it for the sake of this spread, so it is what it is, and I think it turned out pretty well. I'm quite pleased with it. You can kind of see me tucking in the edges of the sellotape there, but I think it turned out well. I like this imagery and I like this design. I had a notebook in this design, and I've used it from front cover to back cover completely, so I'm quite sad that it's no longer one I can use, but I'm glad to be able to enjoy the display and the artwork still. And so now we move on to the spread that I create for Asian Readathon. So if you don't know, Asian Readathon is hosted in the month of May by Cindy at With Cindy, and it's a readathon basically where you read books by Asian authors and set in Asian countries, featuring Asian characters, etc, etc. I participated last year and really enjoyed myself. I love reading the Asian literature all year round, to be honest, but this is just an excuse to kind of get to books that you maybe wouldn't have gotten to for a few months, or that have been sitting on your TBR or on your radar, and just kind of prioritise them, celebrate Asian literature, etc. And it's something that I really enjoy doing, so definitely plan on taking part. And this is kind of my TBR spread for the month, so you can kind of see I'd create this kind of floral design. This is something that I saw another book journaler do online, and if I can find their channel I'll link it down below. But they did it in pen, and I do think that their version of it turned out a lot better than mine. It's just quite a bit prettier and a bit bolder, and I spent ages wondering whether or not I should add more black lines to the flowers, and I think in hindsight I might have done it that way. but do you know what, it's turned out fine. And you can see me here kind of placing out where the boxes will go for this spread, because my plan is to create 4 boxes and each of them will represent one of the prompts for Asian Readathon. So you can see me here basically placing out where these 4 boxes will go and kind of trying to figure out what they'll look like, and also just hand drawing them. As I said, that's something I'm trying a little bit more in this month's spread. I went for a 4 box format because there are, I think, 5 prompts for the readathon, but 2 of the prompts, one of them is a book by an Asian author and one of them is a book featuring Asian characters, and I think all the books on my TBR that have Asian characters are written by Asian authors, and so I've just combined that into one prompt and given the other ones boxes. So now onto the list, and as I said, I've sectioned these out into 4 different sections. This basically started as a list of all the books that I have either out from the library or high on my library wish list, or that I already own or have ebook or audio book copies of, and from there I kind of sectioned them off into sections, and I looked at like what kind of topics they cover as well, because I am trying to be quite conscientious of like seeking more joy in my reading this year. And so I kind of filtered out any that I thought dealt with really heavy topics, which are topics I don't want to read about just now. So first off, we have the category Asian author / character, and these were actually ones that didn't fit in the other boxes, and so we have the first up, Do Not Say We Have Nothing, and this is a story about a young girl, a 10-year-old girl, and her mother who invite a Chinese refugee, I believe, into their home, and it kind of follows their relationships with one another. I'm expecting a slow burn, character driven novel. I'm not really sure exactly, but I've had this on my Kindle for really a long time, and I think it's one that I inherited from my mum because we do share a Kindle library, and so I'm curious to see what I will think of that when I get to it. And next up we have The Leavers, and this is a novel about a woman who goes missing and she leaves her son behind, and the son is adopted, I believe, into a white family, and it's kind of about him wrestling with his heritage and his new family and his like 2 identities, and feeling kind of like he's having a lot of struggles there. And the next one is Family Trust, and this one is about, it's like a family saga, and I think they're quite a wealthy family, or there's something to do with money and inheritance or something. I saw this in the library, I've seen it a few times, and just kind of was drawn to it. The cover is very pretty, so I was curious about it. And then we have Afterparties, and this is a short story collection. I started reading this last month. I got a copy via NetGalley, and it's absolutely fantastic so far. There are some heavier themes in it, so I was kind of dipping in and out of it between other things, but definitely if you like literary fiction, or if you like short stories in general, this is definitely one to put on your radar. It's absolutely fantastic so far, and like such a high quality of writing, and yeah, definitely one to watch. The next prompt or category is dedicated to favourite genre, so there's a book by an Asian author that's in your favourite genre, and I kind of struggled with what to choose for this, because usually I would say literary fiction, but recently I've been very drawn to more escapism, I guess, than I get from literary fiction. And for this I've gone for basically my favourite genre at the moment, which at the moment I'm really leaning towards romance and science fiction, both very different genres, but I'm enjoying both a lot, and so I have put those down here as like my favourite genre. So the first book in this category is First Comes Light, and this is a story I believe about online dating, and I've heard people say that it's enemies to lovers, although I'm not sure myself, and this is just an author that I was curious to try their work by, and this is an audiobook that I have, so yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to that at some point. I also have Hana Carries On, which is a book that I've been really excited about. I read a previous title by this author called Ayesha at Last, and absolutely loved that one, and this is a retelling of You've Got Mail, but it's set in competing halal restaurants, it just sounds absolutely brilliant, so I'm really looking forward to reading that. That's like probably one of the top ones on my list for this readathon and this month in general. I also have I Am China, which is a story about a translator who is asked to translate some love letters between two lovers, and we get flashes back to those lovers as well as the translator's point of view. So there's quite a complex storyline, but I put it in this category because it's ultimately about love and romance, but I think it's a bit more hard-hitting than like your typical romance or love story, so I'm curious about it. And then for science fiction, I slipped in here a title called On a Red Station Drifting, and this is by a French author who I believe has Vietnamese heritage, and I discovered it via a book list of books that are set in space, because that's kind of something that I've been curious to explore more. This one sounds really interesting, although I'm not sure exactly how to explain it. It's a novella in a long series of novellas. This is set in space, but it's also got quite a lot of like kind of historical feeling to it, because it's also about ancestry and historic privilege, and kind of complex relationships with family as a result of that. And the main character has abandoned her, I believe, like her planet, and so her people, and she's now seeking refuge on this new airship, and I think there's going to be quite a lot of complexity there, and I think it's going to be really interesting, and I'm very curious about it. And then for the category, the next one is not US centric, so anything that doesn't centre the US, and I kind of tried to avoid titles that also centre other English language countries, the UK, Canada, etc., because I have quite a few titles like that. And so the 3 titles on this list are all translated, but at the time of doing the video I didn't have the translators' names to hand. But the first one is The Borrowed, and this is by an author from Hong Kong, and it's set in Hong Kong. It's a mystery novel, and it follows like the history of this detective's career and the kind of cases they come across. I read a previous title by this author, I think it's called Second Sister, and I liked it. I thought like there was some issues with the book, but I definitely want to read more from the author, and so I'm looking forward to reading The Borrowed and see what I think of that one. The next book on this list is The Great Passage. This is a Japanese translated title, and one that's been on my Kindle for quite a long time. It's quite a short novel, and I think it's about a man who translates or works on dictionaries, and it's time for him to retire and kind of pass on this legacy, and it's about like the power of words, how words and language connects us. So I'm very curious about that and to see kind of what it's like. And then the final title on this list is The Nakano, I think it's how you say, The Nakano Thrift Shop. And this is a quirky novel by the author who wrote Strange Weather in Tokyo, which I liked when I read it in 2019. And I'm very curious to read this one and see if it's just as quirky, just as kind of insightful, I guess, about Japan and Tokyo. And yeah, I had a really nice time reading the Strange Weather in Tokyo. And I'm curious to see if it's just as quirky and light-hearted as how I found Strange Weather in Tokyo. But I believe it centres on like a shop which has some interesting goings on, although I don't know all the details. And I'm looking forward to finding that out as I read. And then the final category is the non-fiction category, and I have quite a few in this category. I tried to limit each of these categories to kind of 3 or 4 books, but this one there were more that I could have got from the library, but I just decided to focus on the ones I already own. And so the first one on this list is The Reason I Jump, and this is about a young boy who's autistic. It's a non-fiction, so it's kind of his experiences that have been translated, and I'm very curious about it. And unfortunately the camera kind of cuts here, but the next 2 on the list, the first one is Capitalism, which is, believe it or not, about capitalism. And then there's Kika and Me, which is about a blind man and his guide dog, and their experience of the world. And I've got that on audiobook, and I'm really looking forward to reading it and listening to it this month. But that's all for this video today, and you can see kind of the finished spreads and how they came out. I'm very pleased with them, and I hope you liked this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it, and if you're taking part in Asian Readathon, do let me know what you plan to read. I would love to hear from you in the comments down below, and have a great month, have a great reading month. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again next time.